Hey guys, today I'm going to discuss, are we in a depression? Because a lot of people see the statistical data, see the high unemployment numbers, or you can say jobless claims as well. They see that the first quarter we were negative, I think 3%, I believe it was, 3 or 6%. And then now the second quarter was a negative 32%, which with those large numbers, people are saying that we are hitting depression level numbers, which numbers could be true, but one thing we have to understand is this is a controlled shutdown of the economy. Remember, during the Great Depression, there was no control. The stock market went to sell off, people were losing jobs, and there were no job opportunities whatsoever. So remember, the second quarter is right around that time, March, April, when everything started shutting down. And of course, when businesses shut down, the government restrictions that were both at the federal and local government, state levels, imposed that businesses shut down. What else were we to expect? Some data, if you do look, and if you compare it to the past, if you watch the vehicle sales figures, the sales figures for vehicles started tapering off, started hitting its peak in 2018, and actually started declining. And usually, when it happens, there's going to be some sort of recession. We had the great financial crisis that occurred, and even that, if you look back around the tech boom, same thing happened. The bubbles burst for the tech boom, and we had a recession. So I was expecting to have a recession sooner than later. And if you watch my videos, I've been saying that in any 12-year period during an economic boom, there is a recession. And I went on to explain these. I'm not going to go over that in this video because it'd be very long and drawn out. But if you see my past videos, you understand what I'm talking about. And we were overdue because the 2008-2009 crisis bottomed out. If you add 12 years to that, that's 2021, which would be next year. So it should be no surprise that this year was a recession. Now, I wasn't expecting us to have a virus outbreak and having the businesses to shut down. That I was not expecting. But these things occur unexpectedly. We don't see what happens until it happens. Each one's kind of different in its own unique way. But with the businesses shutting down, it was expected that employees would get furloughed or get laid off, and to have these great jobless claims, unemployment numbers, and it's trying to be spinned off into something else, in my opinion. But I'll keep it at that because I don't want to get into the political part of it. But the other factors was the bills that were passed, the HEROES Act and everything. Yes, the stimulus did help some people. Yes, it helped some of the businesses. Now, we're discovering that PPP, I think it's called, or PPE loan for small businesses went out to large companies. Went out to some companies, and they actually went out to purchase vehicles instead of using that money to keep their employees on the books. So there's, you can say, fraud, misuse of money, what it was supposed to be used for. The other side of the coin is the $600 a week granted to individuals for assisting them during this time, which in a way I could understand, to help these individuals. But there's a kickback on that. These individuals, if you add in the state tax, the state unemployment with the federal employment, were making over $1,000 a week. If you annualize that, that comes out to about 52 or a little bit more thousand a year, which meant some of these individuals were actually making more money being unemployed, doing nothing, than going back to work. On top of that, if you're calculating unemployment, or probably even getting food stamps or assistance on top of that, and then you could probably go and get federal health insurance, and you hardly have to pay any, or you don't have to pay anything. Why would you even go back to work making less money? So that was another hindrance on the jobless claims, was people were getting offered jobs, and I can go around my way here, and I live in a very rural area, and I see help needed signs all over the place. Now, granted, they probably aren't the best paying jobs, but something is better than nothing. And now we're comparing this to the Great Depression. The Great Depression, you did not have this option. When the Great Depression happened, everybody lost money in the stock market. It plummeted. People lost their jobs, and there was no help wanted signs anywhere. There is no job opportunities for you to go find a job like there is today. People weren't getting paid money to stay home and not work. Now, the fallout from this as well is with these companies not being productive. These smaller companies had to be shut down. The bills still came due to be paid for the small businesses. And this is decimating the small businesses. And that's why if you talk to a small business owner, they're complaining about being closed because the bills have not stopped coming in. You're not making any money. If you're a small business, you're just barely afloat. And they're just getting killed. Now that doesn't mean that we're not having a recession, and I think the fallout from closing everything is causing a recession, but not a depression. I expect the jobless claims to fall, especially now since the bill hasn't been renewed to have the $600 a week being handed out, and now nothing will be handed out next week, because I believe it was this past Friday is when the bill was paying out the last check, and nothing has been signed to extend this as of Saturday 8/1, August the 1st. So now people are not going to have any federal $600 coming in, and now they're going to be living off unemployment for however many more months they have, and now they're going to have to go take a job. And now the tide has turned for the employee. It would have been better if the employee was going and getting a job when there was hardly anyone getting a job, because you could negotiate your salary. Now there's going to be so many people coming out on the market to get a job. It's an employer market now. They can get somebody cheaper, and you don't have no negotiating power to be able to get a decent paying wage now. But the other thing I hear, a lot of people complain about, and they don't have a complete understanding of how this works, is the tenants. This is the big thing. And besides hearing early in the depression because of the numbers, the next thing you hear about is rent, and hearing about the tenants wanting to kick people out because they're not paying, or they're only getting partial payments, and people don't understand why the tenants are upset, who are renting it out to them. People have to understand that when you are renting a place, that tenant who is renting the place to you is relying on you paying your rent so they can pay a mortgage on that place. What people don't realize is the banks are not being are not helping out the tenants with their mortgage. There are some banks out there who are saying, all right, you don't have to pay your mortgage until July. So they let them go for 3 months. And they said, when you pay in July, not only do you have to pay in July's payment, you got to pay the past 3 payments. So you have to pay 4 months of payments in 1 month. But not all banks were even doing that. They were still expecting individuals to still pay their monthly payment. So some states required that the tenants not evict anybody from their apartment during this time. So the tenant is stuck in the middle. On one hand, you have the state government saying you can't kick somebody out, no matter what, if they don't make a payment or anything. Now, if I'm a renter, it's like, okay, why would I pay rent? Right? Besides the moral aspect of it, but that gives an incentive for that individual, even if you had the money, not to pay the rent. He can't do anything to you. But on the flip side, the tenant is getting hit by the bank saying, you owe me money this month, every month. And every month that he's not paying, he's getting fees upon fees. And then it gets to a point where it can go into foreclosure. And what people don't understand is even if the banks were lenient. So how far does this go? So if you understand what happened because it's more than just not only the renter being affected, not only the tenant being affected, it's also not even the bank being affected, there's more. And if you understand what happened during the financial crisis, you'll have an understanding. I'll go over really quick. So if the renter doesn't pay the tenant can't pay the bank. Now, if the bank held on to it, the bank is the one who's going to get nailed for this. They're the one falling behind. But still, a lot of banks are selling these off to investment companies like Goldman Sachs and others. And what they'll do is wrap it in a tranche or put it in a ETF or some investment vehicle, send it out in the investment world, and sell it out to, it could be into a foreign country investor, it could be a local investor, it could be a company, it could be you, the individual. So if you map this out, it's just not the renter and the tenant. It's the renter, it's the tenant, it's the bank, it's the investment company which bought it, and even the investor all the way at the end that would not get their payment. So this thing is a huge mess. And nothing that has been passed in the bill, the HEROES Act, and even the new bills that are coming out, will not address this. And right now, as everybody, if you looked online, there's an eviction crisis because these evictions that were postponed, telling tenants not to evict individuals, has now expired. I can guarantee you a lot of these people, I think it was like 33%, I want to say 33% of individuals were not making their monthly payment, has not made a single payment. Just think about that. 33%. That means 33% of the tenants were not receiving their money, which they couldn't pay the bank. Which now the bank is getting close. If you think since March, April, May, June, I think they have to wait. I think they usually wait about 5-6 months before they go into foreclosure. So if the tenant doesn't evict these individuals, they're going to have to go in foreclosure, and the bank's going to have to take the house or whatever it may be. And then we have another housing crisis. So people have to have an understanding of how far deep this goes before you say, well, the nasty tenant, he wants to kick me out because I haven't been able to pay my rent because I don't have a job or this or that. I understand you don't have a job, but there are jobs out there. This is not the Great Depression by any means, stretch an imagination. Is it a recession? Yes, it is. I'm not saying there isn't anybody has hard times, but it's not a Great Depression. That's all I want to say. Is we're in a recession. I think we'll get out of this. It's going to take some time. I don't think it's going to be this great bounce back. Individuals are going to have to start taking jobs. I don't anticipate that a bill will be passed, but I don't think it'll be passed this week. I think they have until next week, if I'm correct. There's going to be a lot of negotiation. I know they want to put the weekly federal amount back in. I think they'll put something, but they're not going to leave the $600 a week in there again. And I think it'll be a shorter period of time. I believe the Democrats want $600 a week again for 6 more months. It'll be the end of the year. I don't think that's going to happen. I think what is going to happen is they're going to have maybe $300 a week. I've seen where some have proposed where you get $400 like for 1 or 2 weeks, and it continuously decreases, goes to $300, $200, $100, then you don't get anything after a certain period of time. After 8 weeks, I've seen different variations of what people are proposing, but I don't anticipate this will be $600 a week again for 6 months. So if you're relying on this, I start looking for another course of action. But this is hurting the job numbers because people are not going back. Employers, and I even know for a fact, can't hire anybody because they have to compete for people making $52K a year. My father-in-law's business, as example, had that issue. Lower paying job, more or less manual labor. Was paying, I think, $40K, about close to that, and that was a decent amount of pay for what they were doing. They were just moving stuff. It's nothing, and especially the location we're in. We're not in a really high cost state. That's pretty good pay in this area, and they were turning it down because they were making over $1,000 a week. So the job numbers is going to start, I think, get better. But yeah, this I think, though, because of this happening, because of the shutdown, it's going to hurt. It already has hurt the small business, and I feel your pain for the small businesses. And now some areas are starting to shut down again, or putting in restrictions, and the restaurant businesses are really going to be hurt, especially if they're all indoor. I see where a lot of places where restaurants are actually just shutting down, for good. Retail businesses, they've already hit a record high. We're only 8 months, this is the 8th month into the year. They've already closed permanently over 20,000, I think it's like 22,000 stores. I know retail businesses are going down, but last year they hit 10,000, that was a record. Well, this year we're hitting 22,000. And a lot of people are like, well, it's Amazon and all these online businesses. But you got to understand, no matter the amount of money they're getting paid, these are people losing their jobs. Imagine, 22,000 stores, and just say that was an average of, just say, 20 people per store. And I can guarantee it's a lot more than that. Do the math. How many people are going on the unemployment line with that? That's that many jobs lost this year alone. And that's not coming back. And in fact, I expect more retail jobs to be closed. So what is taking that place? What's taking the place of that job? I know there are some industrial jobs coming back to the United States, which is positive. And providing a good income. Maybe that'll help alleviate the problem with the retail business. But are we in a Great Depression? No. Are we in a recession? Yes. But just remember, this is a controlled shutdown. The Great Depression of the 1930s that keeps getting reiterated if you watch the news or online is not today. And if you don't believe me, go look on YouTube. There's plenty of videos showing how bad it was in the 1930s, and it does not even compare to what we have today. Well, thank you very much for watching my video, and have a wonderful day.